Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make these wrist cuffs that you can use in Lolita fashion or Fairy K or any other J fashion that you find it suitable for. And we are going to start by examining how these wrist cuffs usually look. And so I have this little collage of different kind of wrist cuffs that I assembled in Photoshop, so I'm going to look at this for reference. As you can see, I have chosen this kind of stretchy wrist cuff this time to recreate. And as you can see, there is a elastic that makes the wrist cuffs stretchy. But there's also this kind that has these little clasps or buttons that you can button up to make this kind of other wrist cuff. But today we are making the stretchy ones. So here's a pair of wrist cuffs that I have already made, just as a little test to see if my method were correct and if it worked, and I think they turned out really cute and I am pretty proud of them. So these are going to be like base that I'm going to create other kinds of wrist cuffs from, just like, you know, a basic recipe. So let's get started. First I'm going to show you how I assembled the pink wrist cuffs, just to show you the basics of what you might need. So I have this pink lace, and I also have this other pink lace that is a little bit smaller and has two edges. I'm also going to use this ribbon, kind of like see-through pink ribbon, quite thick. I believe it's around 3.5 centimeters. And I'm also going to use this kind of ruffled-ish textured ribbon and another textured ribbon for making the actual ribbon on the cuff later on. So you are going to first measure out the measurements of your wrist, and we're going to take this measurement and multiply it by 2 to get the length of the actual ribbon. So the ribbon and lace of the wrist cuff is going to be double the length that you measured out around your wrist, plus 2 centimeters for seam allowance. So here I'm just going to cut up some white ribbon to go on the inside, and I'm going to place some lace on top. So it's basically the inside or the lining of the wrist cuff that this ribbon is going to be. And the first step here is going to be stitching the lace to the ribbon. And as you can see here, I have the front of the lace facing upwards, and I'm placing the lace on top of the ribbon. So I'm going to pin it down, and then I'm going to stitch it down. And then I'm going to layer the rest of my ribbons on top of this base. And I'm going to place them like this, kind of in the center of each other, you know. Try to place it in the middle as best as you can. And I'm going to stack all of these laces and ribbons on top of each other and pin them down in order. I'm going to sew all of them at once, so that's why I'm having so many ribbons and laces and pins. I think it works best this way. And just for demonstration, I'm going to show you that the ribbon that is going to be at the front is thicker than my elastic, which is really important, so I am able to get it through. So what I'm going to do now is sew a channel for my elastic to pass through, which is going to be 2 parallel seams, and you have to measure yourself how wide your elastic is, but I think I sewed maybe a little wider than 1 centimeters channel, and I'm showing you how the channel looks. So remembering the measurement you took around your wrist from earlier, you're going to take that measurement and add 3 centimeters for seam allowance. It is a little bit too much actually, but you'd rather have a loose wrist cuff than one that is fitting too tight, because you can always adjust that one later. So I'm going to get this elastic through my channel by pinning this safety pin onto my elastic, and I'm going to get it through just like this. It takes a little bit of time, but just be patient. And I also had a needle that I didn't pick out, so be careful, there might be needles inside. I have poked myself many a time with needles, it happens so frequently and I just cannot stop. So please be careful, because my fingers are constantly bleeding. And please don't forget to pin the other side of the elastic to whatever you're channeling your elastic through, because yeah, you can imagine what happens if you don't do that. And when you finally come to the end, you're going to pin down the elastic to keep it from budging when you sew it later on. And I'm also going to do the same with the other side. And placing the right side facing each other, just like this. I'm going to pin from the top to the bottom. And I'm going to sew a zigzag line where I have pinned. And the reason why I'm doing this is that the ribbon won't fray, or yeah, do something weird if you do this first, just like this. You can see it's nice and secure, and I'm going to just trim down a little bit. And you can also here in this step just try the wrist cuff on just to see if the size fits you. If it doesn't, you can always adjust it here before you do the next step, which is doing a straight stitch just down the same path. You just fold in the zigzag part so that it looks a bit nicer. You're basically top stitching over, and you get this nice looking finish that is nicer to look at and nicer to have on your wrist. And I'm just showing you where I sewed this, because it can be quite tricky actually. This is probably the trickiest part of making the wrist cuff, to get this part to look nice. And I don't get it right all the time. Actually, it looks kind of sloppy, but no one's gonna notice, because you will turn this inside out and you will have hopefully a really cute wrist cuff base that you can decorate however you want. And you can also try it on just to be sure. I have made the mistake of going way too many steps ahead and then trying it on and it doesn't fit, and I am really angry. So always try on what you sew. And then it's time for decoration of the wrist cuff. I am assembling a few pearls, some thread that is nice and thick, not the kind that you will have in your sewing machine, like a thicker kind, because it will be way better for the purpose. And I also made this little cute ribbon, this little bow that will go on the front. And I might make a video on how to make different kind of bows as well, because I am a bow expert and I want to share my bow knowledge to all my students. And here I'm just showing you the final wrist cuff. I have already made one, just so that I know how to make it. And I'm going to start by cutting up some thread, and I'm going to fold it in half, and just like this, and cut it, and I'm going to use it like double, if that makes sense. And I'm going to thread the needle with both ends. Kind of hard to explain, but this is so clever. It is like the best thing ever. So I'm just going to thread it through to almost the end and leave a little bit of the thread left. And I'm going to fasten my thread to the wrist cuff before I do anything else. So as you can see, I am just pulling my needle through this little loop that I have made, and this is just the best thing. It is so smart. I mean, the person who invented this technique of fastening thread must have been given the Nobel Prize, because oh my god, it's fucking genius. And when I discovered this technique, I was like mind blown. So yeah, here you go. You can thank me later. And I'm just going to stitch the bow to the wrist cuff, just threading through the bow into the wrist cuff and through the bow again. And there's no real technique to doing this, just as long as you get it nice and straight and, you know, not too crazy stitching going on the inside. But no one's gonna see that anyway. Just get it nice and straight, make sure it's nice and tight, do your thing. Yeah, mine always looks a little bit different every time. And I'd say you maybe want to make around 3 stitches that goes through the bow and through the wrist cuff before you finish by wrapping your thread around the needle and then threading through those loops that you made. I don't know, just do what you see on screen. It's really hard to explain, but this is also really clever way of fastening thread when you're done stitching. And don't forget to thread through the fabric one more time just to secure your little knot. Lastly, I'm going to have a little band of pearls on my bow. So I'm just fastening my thread to the bow, and then I'm just threading through pearls in a nice order. I have these white pearls, and I'm also using some gold pearls in a different size, which I think looks really cute. And when you have your pearls in place, you want to fasten the pearl by just looping around the last pearl and make sure that the strand of pearls is nice and tight, no gaps nowhere, because those gaps will get in trouble if you have them. And just stitch those to the other side of the bow, just threading through that pearl one time or so, just to be extra sure that those pearls don't go anywhere. And then I'm looping the thread around the last pearl, again, hard to explain. And then thread through the pearl again, fasten the thread just like before by looping the thread around the needle and then pull through. I know it might look quite difficult and and I won't say it's easy. It's never easy to get it right, especially if it's your first time. Remember, I've been doing this at least 1,000 times or more, and I have fucked up maybe half of the times. So don't feel bad if it looks like shit, because that's the way life is, you know? And nobody's going to look that close at your Wristcuffs anyways, so don't be bothered if you have some weird knots. And then we are done with our Wristcuff. This maybe isn't really a beginner's project. You might want to have some kind of knowledge of a sewing machine and using needle and thread, but I'd say it's quite easy. And I think they turn out pretty similar to the pictures I had assembled on my paper. And I have made 3 pairs so far, and I will show them to you just so that you can see different materials used and different ways of stacking lace and ribbon. And remember, you can use just about whatever kind of fabric or lace or ribbon you have. Just mix and match whatever you find cute, and I am sure it will turn out just right. And if it doesn't, don't feel bad about it. Just make 1 more pair or 3 more pairs until you are a Wristcuff master. And that is all for this time. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.